All right, so this one was just another case of, are we really sure how much they have in common, or did we just kind of Google? We wanted, well, I can't even remember which one we started with, or it was Prank or Shoot 'Em Up, and we were like, what goes with this, more or less? Because another thing I kind of like to look into when I decide like what is what as far as the verses goes is like they don't even necessarily have to have a shitload in common, like plot wise or whatever, or even
Hmm.
or even by who made them, but just if they would make a really good double feature, it could also be involved also.
Well, they're both two movies that are extremely short, and they're sprints essentially.
Yeah, and then there's the whole thing that I was reading about, and then I kind of thought about it, and it's one thing they have in common is that Crank is so incredibly violent, like seemingly nonstop,
Hmm.
and it's like this sort of ultimate action movie. And then Shoot 'Em Up, you could pretty much say the exact same thing about.
Hmm.
But another thing that tends to be associated with action movies
Hmm.
is its explosions. And if I remember correctly, Crank has one explosion in it, and apparently the director's whole point of Shoot 'Em Up is that there's none at all. It's all gun violence.
Hmm. If I read the credits correctly, I believe the director of Shoot 'Em Up was a producer or something on Crank.
Oh, that would make perfect sense. I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, but I think with both of these movies, they're in the genre of the plot matters about as much as points and whose lines it anyway.
Yeah, which is actually kind of somewhat a problem I have with Shoot 'Em Up.
Hmm.
But I figure you want to start with Frank.
We can start with either one. We can start with Chev Chelios.
Yeah, because Crank came out the year before, and it's one of those cases where I pretty much I've touched on Neverland and Taylor a number of times,
Hmm.
and more often than not, it's praise. Especially since I finally, after referencing it in a billion other videos, did a video on Gamer,
Hmm.
like a month or so ago, and assuming people missed that Gamer video, basically I praised them for having this frenetic energy that it's not necessarily new, but they made it unique in their own way to where you can immediately recognize one of their movies.
Hmm.
And anything that's like that after this just feels like an imitation of them. And that's like pretty much any straight to video action director is trying to be Neverland and Taylor at this point.
Hmm.
But what's funny is there's so many things. It kind of goes back to when you look at like Rob Zombie and you praise House of Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, and then you look at his newer movies and you hate them for the reason you liked the earlier ones. And it's like whenever I watch Crank or Gamer, there's so many aspects to it that bring it to life in the way it's meant to be, and I hate those techniques in other movies
Hmm.
because it just feels try hard and like they're doing too much of one thing and they're doing the shaky cam and the quick editing and all that, and it's annoying as fuck unless you have a story and a concept that suits
Oh,
the title.
the shaky cam. You mean like the Paul Greengrass?
Yes, exactly like that. Only once again, Paul Greengrass also is instantly identifiable in his own right, so we give him a pass. But
Did you like the reenactment there using my environment?
I couldn't tell if you were just adjusting or if you were doing the green girl.
No, I literally just sat in my living room and just shook it for a minute.
And yeah, that's
But
another thing too.
that's how we used to refer to it. He was never Paul Greengrass. He was always Paul Greengrass. Sorry, Paul Greengrass.
But you get that vibe also, don't you? With somebody like Greengrass or people like Melody and Taylor, where it's like, well, that's their signature it's so much theirs, you can tell when it's actually them and when it's a poor imitation of them.
You can say the same thing about Tarantino.
Yeah.
Because while a lot of people love the Boondock Saints, a lot of people have said that like Troy Duffy was trying to be Tarantino.
Yeah. And that's sort of like when we get into Shoot 'Em Up, we can talk about the fact that the director actually made it a point. It's basically his ode to John Woo, is what Shoot 'Em Up is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing about Crank is Crank feels like it was this like I said, it's not a new style or anything. And I made this clear. I tried to make this clear in the gamer video also. I'm not trying to claim that Nelly and Taylor invented anything in particular.
Mm-hmm. But
just their style, it feels like after Crank, there were a lot of movies that were trying to be Crank.
Mm-hmm. Including Crank 2.
And all of them are terrible. Also, I'll go into Crank 2 at the end of this one, so we don't get too sidetracked. But yeah, what do you think about Crank in general?
I think Statham's the right choice to play Chev Chelios.
Yeah, it's like there's nobody else it could be. There's no way.
Yeah.
Because apparently he was nervous about the style of the movie and playing Chev because he was nervous. Obviously, this is pre-Spy.
Mm-hmm.
He was nervous about doing comedy because he didn't think he'd be able to. Because what's interesting about this movie is it's so frenetic and so violent and so nonstop, but it's also funny as hell.
Mm-hmm. And of course, with Amy Smart, there's one word that comes to mind to me about her character. In the midst of all this violence, she's kind of adorable. Like he's trying to reveal that he's been lying to her, and she just hiccups.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing is whenever I go back and I watch the movie, for some reason, you would think it'd be crucial, but for some reason, I always forget that she doesn't know what he does right away.
Yeah.
So there's like a whole segment of him trying to hide killing people as he's killing people.
Yeah, and one of them is just as simple as he just takes her purse and just throws it on the ground, and that's enough to distract her.
And then, she's worried about the stuff still laying there as they're being shot at.
Yeah, she thinks she left the waffle iron on that he's just used to burn himself.
I remember vividly the day I saw this in theaters. And it was like, the advertisements made it look really cool, and it was a really cool concept, the whole idea of his adrenaline is the only thing keeping him alive. That's like the perfect concept for an action movie, to be nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was watching the movie, it was just like, this is fucking nuts. This is absolute insanity somehow put onto film.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that in itself shows you how hard it would be to recapture something like this, whether it be they themselves with the sequel or people trying to imitate them.
And also, I mean, it's a movie that doesn't stop. I mean, it's one of the few movies that I've seen that we're getting a little bit of exposition from Jason Statham, but we're doing so while he's driving through a mall, running from the cops.
Yeah, because that's his thing is like, and that's something that Statham does really well also, is having to do this where he's like this really, really intense character that's going through an extremely intense situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the control that he has regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he loses his cool a number of times, but there's moments like you were talking about where he's driving through the mall, or the moment when he's first realized what happened, and he's driving like frantically while being chased, and he's on the phone with Amy Smart's answering machine saying, "Could you please get a cell phone, please?"
Let's not forget the first time we finally hear from her after he's frantically been trying to reach her, it's, "Oh, I slept in."
And that's the thing too, is it's really good for his character to show you just how control he can be under that kind of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
but that also adds so much to the comedy of it also.
I think it's also nice too that in a situation like this, it would have been really easy to break them up because he's too intense for her, or he yells at her, or something like that. But actually, as the movie goes on, they form a stronger bond. She's mad at him for about 5 seconds.
And then she's more than willing to help in various ways.
Yeah.
It even gets to the point to where his heartfelt message to her is literally the note it goes out on.
Yeah. Because it would be really easy to make her like annoying and a distraction and get in the way, and they have a fight to complicate things. But her character is actually used very well.
Yeah. And I think that kind of plays into another point I wanted to bring up,
Mm-hmm.
which is even at like 86 minutes, there are plenty of movies that have like a frenetic concept and a short runtime,
Mm-hmm.
but they still somehow end up running out of gas or running out of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, around every single corner, has either a new way to deal with this problem or a different stylistic choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how they go through the whole movie and have a different stylistic choice for almost every scene.
The only scene I could think of where we actually slow down and take a breath, which is before the climax, which if you're going to do that, that's a great time to do it, is when we're at Dwight Yoakam's office. Dr. Dwight Yoakam.
And they still manage to make a good moment out of it because it's basically him coming to terms with the fact that there isn't a cure.
Yeah.
Because we keep expecting there's going to be some sort of cop-out.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why the existence of a sequel sucks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love that the concept turns into there is no out.
Mm-hmm.
Like how it's when he says earlier in the movie, I'm going to kill Ricky Verona if it's the last thing I ever do.
Mm-hmm.
If this movie didn't have a sequel, that would be the last thing he did.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's such a great concept, but we know how sequels work, I guess. There is one great joke that the sequel has.
How does the sequel even bring him back?
It immediately picked. I haven't seen it since 2009 when it came out, so I may be, if I get anything wrong, that's why.
Mm.
But if I remember correctly, it immediately picks up from there. Like the beginning of Crank 2 is him hitting the ground, like we see at the end of 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then they literally like scoop him up with a snow shovel, and then they put another heart into him that runs on electricity. So instead of going around looking for adrenaline, he has to go around like repeatedly shocking himself or something.
Oh, see, he should have just kept Glenn Howerton to run around with him.
Glenn Howerton he comes back in one scene, but it's like he gets accidentally killed by a stray bullet because the whole joke is that he's in a psychiatrist's office.
Hmm.
If I remember correctly, his psychiatrist is a Lauren Holly cameo of all things.
Hmm.
And then Chev is in the midst of a gunfight, and the reason at the same time, the reason he's in a psychiatrist's office is because he's traumatized by his interaction with Chev.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lauren Holly convinces him to live his life to the fullest. And he's like, yes, I'm a new person now. And then a stray bullet from Chev's fight outside comes through the window and goes through his head.
Why do I feel like that would happen to him on It's Always Sunny if they wanted to take it full dark?
There is. Yeah, as we're having this conversation, I only just started It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia recently.
How has there not been a meme of Chev doing the anyway I just started blasting and then just a cut of the shot of Glenn Howerton getting shot? How has that not happened?
Yeah, because that's going into the dark stuff, and it's like I just started It's Always Sunny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already on season 7. The last episode I just watched was the fake baby funeral.
Mm.
So it's like whenever it seems too crazy, they always top it. There's no way I thought they could have topped the Christmas episode in craziness, but they already are. But before we get too sidetracked, the one great joke in Crank 2 is not, in fact, the Glenn Howerton thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's and like I said, in one case I hate it because it ruins a great moment from the first movie. But at the same time, I can't argue against it being a great joke. It's a great joke.
Mm-hmm.
The heartfelt moment when he's dropping to his death and he calls Amy Smart one more time.
Mm-hmm.
He leaves the message on her answering machine because she doesn't have a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
When he runs into her again in the second movie, he says, "Didn't you get my message?" And it cuts to her answering machine, and it's just the sound of wind. It's like, that's a great joke because that's exactly what it would have sounded like. That is the most I can praise Crank 2 for. But like I said, if you didn't catch the gamer video or any other time I brought that up, I'll mention at the end why I don't like Crank 2. But what else do you dig about Crank exactly?
It just doesn't stop. It just goes.
Yeah, like I want to touch a little more on the stylistic choices.
Mm-hmm.
How like because we are in this time. I'm sure I've talked about this a lot also, but we're in this time where at some point in movie history we got separated from movies were to be theatrical and fantastical,
Mm-hmm.
and then we transitioned into everything has to be realistic or it's dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So I love movies like Crank and Shoot 'Em Up, really, that don't play into that basically feel like a cartoon to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Where we get moments like when he's in the building after he's just gotten the cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And when all those guys are chasing him out of the building, we get that shot that's very cartoon-like of like the building bulging before he breaks out of the building. And it's like that stuff like that is why this movie style works. And there's even stuff like when he's running through the hallways at the mall talking to Dwight Yoakam, and there's that one shot where Dwight Yoakam is just like projected onto the wall as he's talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's only there for like a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
But I just love that, like, literally, not even just like scene to scene, literally, when he's going around the corners of those hallways, around every corner, literally, is a new stylistic choice. It's kind of incredible to behold. And then all the times they play with subtitles, whether it be "Do I look like I've got cunt written on my forehead?" or when the subtitles in the elevator, when we see it from the guy's perspective, and it's like they're in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like shit like that is amazing.
Plus, they have a lot of fun with like Chev's hallucinating.
Yeah.
Like the taxi cab driver that turns around and he's like in black light.
Yeah.
Or the guy in the elevator that's changing voices.
Yeah. It's like it does such a good job of doing what would seem to be the impossible, which is putting us inside Chev's head.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's a place we would think we don't want to be at all, but when we're in there, we're like, okay, I'm on this ride. We talked about other people, like random people showing up, like Glenn Howerton, who we probably didn't really know at the time. It's Always Sunny would have been like its second season at this point, probably, or close to it. In the scene when Cunt appears on his forehead, did you recognize who he's talking to?
Yeah, it's the dude from Veronica Mars and the kid from Kazam.
Yeah, Francis Capra.
Yeah.
And then, for some reason, I didn't know this for the longest time. Chester Bennington, the late Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park, is the guy in the pharmacy that tells him about the nasal spray.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
And yeah, and that's what makes this movie so beautiful. Is there's just something totally insane around every corner, and and that's the thing too. Is I say it doesn't run out of gas like most movies like this do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, is the concept is so perfectly constructed. you can't run out of gas, or your main character will literally die.
Yeah.
They had no choice but to keep the movie running.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, even in the downtime, like whether it be, like I said, the Dwight Yoakam scene, we pretty much come to terms with the fact that he will have to die. There's no other way around it.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's the scene where he's trying to explain things to Amy Smart. And the only reason he has the downtime to explain this to Amy Smart is because the scene begins with him using the nasal spray like an insane person. And it's like the fact that you have to have that constantly is why this works.
Mm-hmm.
And why it doesn't feel try-hard. Because they set it up from the get-go that this has to happen. It's not because the directors want to show you how flashy they are. It's because it has to be to suit the story.
Every time the movie starts to slow down, Chev starts to die.
Yeah. And we get stuff where, like, even Chev reaches those points of desperation where it's like, put something on the radio and crank it. And it's achy breaky heart. And he's like, all right, I'll try to use this the best I can.
Because then he looks like he's having a fit in the back seat.
Yeah, that got a huge laugh in the theater.
I wondered, like, when the movie ended, I was like, man, I wonder if Jason Statham's, like, exhausted from doing that movie.
Yeah, because it's like, you talk about the style working in its favor also. I think about the scene when he finally gets the epinephrine from Glenn Howerton.
Mm-hmm.
And he just bolts out of the hospital. And this scene is so well done. It feels like we're feeling this in first person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it completely gives you the feeling of what he has as he's going. And it's like to make you actually feel that adrenaline just through the means of filmmaking is insane. And like I said, the way he constantly gets to play off this with like comedy is also something that would feel forced in another way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing too, is you've got him so grounded. Because to my understanding, I think when he told them he was worried about doing comedy, they told him if you play it absolutely totally straight, the comedy will do itself.
Mm-hmm.
But he still has moments. Like I love the moment after he's just used the waffle iron. And he almost forgets the effects of certain things. So she says, do you want some pot or something? And his response is, yeah. No! And stuff like that.
And I love that that she picks up on that as a character too. Like when she's giving him head in the car, and she just stops, and she's like, "You're not gonna fall asleep like you always do." And he's bummed, but at the same time, he kind of respects that she thought of that.
Yeah, because it's like they become a great team in keeping him alive.
Yeah.
That's another that's another one of those things too, where it's like the comedy doesn't feel forced and the comedy doesn't feel shoehorned. The comedy just happens to also play a part in how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are comedic measures to be taken to do that, but also like when you just look at the editing, another comedic cut that I really love is when he gets to Amy Smart's apartment and he says, she says, you know, where's your car? And he says, I took a cab.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as he says, I took a cab, it cuts to the police bike that he brought here on fire on the side of the road. And it's, yeah, I just really appreciate this movie, and I love that I still can. Like, the movies that try to copy it didn't ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
And because I loved noticing the game that didn't happen to Gamer either. Because I think Gamer is still my favorite movie of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But this is also totally its own great thing. Is there anything to you that doesn't hold up about it?
I don't know. It comes and goes so quickly.
I mean, I don't want to get too much into this, but I was thinking like the slurs, I guess.
Oh, well, I mean,
there's There's a lot of slurs
Yeah.
from all characters, from villains and heroes alike. But at the same time,
You were talking about people that show up. Let's not forget that his buddy that helps him out at first is Pedro.
yeah, Efren Ramirez.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, they bring him back in the sequel as a different character.
Oh, I was gonna say because he dies in the first one
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This is okay.
because he's murdered and then he becomes like a shield for Chev to get out of that building.
Yeah, staying a true friend the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's even there. Even him and his rolling pin probably in a way saved Chev's life a little longer. Yeah, that's another thing Crank and Shoot 'em Up have in common. They're both involve people getting shot by severed hands.
Yeah.
That's another thing that sucks about Crank too is would you believe me if I told you they somehow brought Ricky Verona back?
How?
Once again, if I remember correctly, he is a living severed head inside of a tank.
Oh. Like, I understand why on paper they would find the concept funny, but it's just a little too far.
That's pretty much the reason I don't like Crank 2 in a nutshell, is what you just said. I get why they thought that would work, but it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Is Crank 2 in a nutshell. Like I talked about before, that is why I just kind of don't like Crank 2, like, because I almost admire it. Like I always say it's one of my least favorite movies ever. But I've probably said it by accident a time or two, but I don't like saying it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Because, like I said, to an extent, I get what they're doing and can appreciate it, where they're just going all in as much as they possibly can. But it just didn't work as well as it does here or in Gamer. So, yeah, this definitely would be much better as a standalone. I wish it would. Like, I like to think, like, I just take my own personal choice and say that Crank 2 is not even canon and that Chev dies from his fall and that's the end of the story, because that's such a better ending.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it gives you an idea, the last shot of Crank 2 is him burning alive.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, as he's practically burning down to the bone, the last shot of the sequel is him giving the camera the finger as he's burning alive.
I thought you were going to tell me, like, his eye shoots open like Halloween Resurrection.
Mid-credit scene.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You knew regardless. It was just a little farther ahead.
Why is Chev Chelios becoming Michael Myers?
I don't know.
Now though, I'm kind of intrigued to watch a movie where Chev Chelios just goes around and Michael Myers people.
Do you think you'll ever end up seeing 2 just out of morbid curiosity?
Probably not.
All right, so that clears the way for Shoot 'em Up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to steer the Shoot 'em Up conversation for the most part? The one thing I will bring up is when I was comparing them to cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
I do love that the whole joke is basically that Clive Owen and Paul Giamatti are Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
It's like Elmer Fudd, you've kind of got like, Giamatti's kind of got the appearance where he's got like the bald and the comb over and all that.
Mm-hmm.
There's the fact that Mr. Smith eats carrots. There's the thing where Hertz's ringtone is Ride of the Valkyries, which kind of goes back to the famous opera episode where he's saying like "kill the rabbit" to the tune of Ride of the Valkyries.
Yeah.
I do prefer that the way it is. I thought it was overkill that they actually end up saying the lines, "What's up, the and Wesley Webb," and all that.
Yeah.
Like, but I do like the clever moment where Giamatti like makes 2 references in one, where he calls him Rabbit, as in Bugs Bunny, but he's also making a reference to the Energizer Bunny at the same time, and he's saying you just keep going and going.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind that, but I like the idea of it literally being a cartoon at heart, while also being an ode to John Woo.
I like the idea of thinking of Hertz as Miles from Sideways after Virginia Madsen didn't answer the door.
Yeah, because I was reading that he had to look like that for Hertz. Like his goatee is kind of off center, and he's got like the really bad hair.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like during his awards run for Cinderella Man,
Mm-hmm.
he had to look like that because they were shooting the movie at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go watch Clooney's Oscar speech, because that's when Giamatti was nominated alongside him,
Mm-hmm.
when they showed Giamatti as a nominee, he just looks like Hertz sitting in the audience. Like that he won SAG that year. It would have been hilarious if he had to go on stage like that.
Will Paul Giamatti ever get back to the Oscars?
Surely he seems comfortable in TV land for now. But
I've heard he's great on Billions.
yeah. And then I believe last time
in addition to the Miles thing, I also like to think that Hertz is what happened after Marty Wolf left Hollywood.
That's believable. He tried to become one of the movies he produced, and this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I believe the last time we talked about Giamatti was the first time we did this whole Zoom thing with The Illusionist.
Yeah,
and we praised him for just his.
This movie's also like Crank. Is it in the first 5 minutes we're off and running?
Yeah, yeah, because when we meet Hertz, it's during the very first actions. Like you don't usually meet the main villain that early in a movie like this.
They even tease his death.
Yeah.
Early on.
Yeah, because like those two moments, the opening scene and then the scene in the brothel,
mm-hmm.
both feel like climaxes.
Yeah.
And we're like barely 20 minutes in when they're at the brothel.
There's a few points in this movie that feels like a climax.
And there's also, I guess just keeping going on the Giamatti thing, there is, we were talking about kind of like his line deliveries and The Illusionist that we love so much.
Mm-hmm.
You said something on the lines of that's pretty much what his career is. It's just those amazing little moments.
Mm-hmm.
And even playing such an over-the-top character, he still gets those in here. Like, I love the moment when the pregnant woman, after she's just given birth, is killed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's dragging her body into the car. Just the way he's saying, "Don't worry, I got it."
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about when he goes to touch her boobs and he gives the Marty Wolf eyebrow.
That scene's just weird to me. But that I actually want to talk about that scene, but in something I'll bring up a little later. But talking about Giamatti's Prestige,
mm-hmm.
It is interesting to see actors do a movie like this just to be having fun.
Yeah.
Like we said, Giamatti was really close to winning an Oscar while they were filming it. Clive Owen was fresh off a movie like Children of Men.
Yeah.
And obviously Clive Owen gets to, help a woman give birth again.
Mm-hmm.
At the start of the movie instead of the end now. But there's such different projects to this movie. It's like you can appreciate it on that alone.
One thing I also really like is the backstory for both main characters is essentially conjecture. Like, we never confirm that Hertz is right about Clive Owen. And I like how Hertz's backstory is kind of built up by henchman gossip.
Yeah. With the whole FBI profiler thing.
Yeah, I think it's cool that, because it kind of gives me a vibe like I play the Arkham games. And whenever you're just flying around the city, you hear, thugs just, talk about the villains. And it's kind of neat to see that done in a movie.
Yeah.
Except where it's not just regular gossip. Giamatti's there to correct it. But it's just funny that it's gossipy.
I love that he's there to correct it, and they're not even listening to him.
Yeah.
You're talking about Clive Owen's backstory. What do you think about the fact that it's a movie called Shoot 'Em Up, about a character that's a wizard with guns, but he doesn't carry his own gun.
No, it's always someone else's.
He's literally living a video game life.
Yeah, pretty much.
and he only uses them when he like really has to, because
Yeah.
the whole movie he's backed into a corner and has to. That's the whole point of the movie. But still, even so, he's doing it only because he has to.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten just how much politics was in this movie.
Yeah. It's definitely a movie that you might as well. There's not really any point in paying attention to the plot.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it. This is why I kind of started off by saying if you wanted to steer this conversation a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because it's much more fun to like talk about how great and exciting the movies are. And I'm assuming you've got plenty of good things to say about the movie,
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't hold up for me as well
Mm-hmm.
as I would have hoped, and it certainly didn't hold up as well as Crank.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got like a lot of praise for it, then you want to
Mm-hmm.
if you want to go first.
I mean, it's just kind of, it's like Crank. It's just batshit craziness going on for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think this and Crank are like right at about the same runtime.
Yeah.
Because I have my copy of Shoot 'Em Up here. I had to send you my copy of Crank so we could do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Shoot 'Em Up's 86 minutes.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure
Was that a Blu-ray?
Yeah,
Nice.
I still have my DVD copy too because it's at a point on the shelf that I can't quite get to. But
There's even in this movie there's even a fight with a bad guy as they've fallen out of a plane.
yeah, so many coincidentally similar actions because they were filmed. They had to have been filmed so close together. You can't really say one copied the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of interesting coincidences.
Yeah. It's like a Deep Impact or Armageddon.
Yeah, just to name one example.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do like how it's almost like we were saying cartoonish. Also, you could almost say comic book like I feel like another movie that could have suited this versus apart from Crank would have been maybe Wanted.
Mm-hmm.
To where like it's their freedom to the way bullets work.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, MythBusters actually did the merry-go-round scene
Yeah.
and determined, shock surprise, that wouldn't work. I'm shocked, I tell you. I'm absolutely shocked. And there's stuff like that where I can appreciate that, but then there's other stuff like, because I know that this is what bothers me. Is like, I feel like I shouldn't be worried about, like we were talking about with Frank, and I was saying how it's great when a movie can get away from that whole everything has to be realism now thing. It's like, be fantastical, be cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be an action movie this big, why not?
I mean, there's a point where Hertz just screams, is this guy really that good, or do we just suck that bad?
And then it's even he is amazed at the merry-go-round scene with his delivery of "fuck me sideways."
Yeah.
Which may or may not be a reference to his own movie. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I know me and Owen have discussed that we go ahead and take that as that. But I don't know. There's just some stuff that I think is even too dumb for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and it's in a way that works because he's trying to do John Woo.
Mm-hmm.
And this is basically the way I talked about Broken Arrow when I talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Was there's a line between this is so over the top and glorious and cartoonish, it's amazing, and the other side of that line, that very thin line where it's, is this too dumb?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like, there's a number of examples, whether it be stuff like, would that really be how it works? Probably not, which is whatever in a movie like this, like the air dryer.
Mm-hmm.
Like the air dryer is used 2 times in a row for 2 different reasons, both of which are equally kind of dumb.
Mm-hmm.
If you put a dude's hand up to the air dryer, is it really going to burn that much that he drops his gun? And secondly, air dryers aren't worth the shit. Is he really going to air out his gun with it with one quick under it thing? And like I said, is this dumb to the point? Like, is it because it's so dumb that I'm even thinking about this when I shouldn't be in a movie like this? If that had happened in Crank, I feel like I wouldn't even be mentioning it right now.
Yeah.
Just be like, yeah, that's the universe they've established.
Speaking of using heat, I mean, Hertz's demise is very fantastical as well.
Yeah, where we can literally see through the hole in him.
I'm just talking about when Smith puts the bullets between his broken fingers and sticks it in the fire.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see, something like that is like, but yet it's creative and cool enough, especially in the moment where you're like, all right, I buy something that fantastical in this.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's not enough of a balance of the stuff that goes so over the top, it's awesome, and so over the top, it's kind of dumb. But I feel like another reason I feel that way is because there are other things here apart from like action scenes being a bit too dumb that make it fall out of balance, and something lesser to something like Crank. Like you were talking about the exposition in Crank.
Mm-hmm.
And how we've got these great scenes of like him driving through the mall and maintaining his control and all that stuff.
All the times he's talking to Dwight Yoakam.
Yeah. This is the type of movie that will stop for exposition. Not always. Sometimes the exposition's going during action scenes, but it'll also stop during exposition. But there are also times where the exposition is so annoyingly blatant.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the guy is walking around and Clive Owen's listening in, and the guy conveniently says at this time, man, setting up, maternity factory above this heavy metal club wasn't very secretive, was it? It's like, are you serious with this shit? And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point, but like, here's the thing. Talking about the FBI profiler background on Giamatti is, you talk about forgiving a movie like this for being dumb. So there's not really much of a balance when it feels like the movie's trying to be smart too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like we're genuinely supposed to think Kurtz is a great detective-like character when he's feeling up the dead body and that occurs to him, the child needs fed. Look up all the lactating hookers in the town. That's quite a fucking leap.
Even Christian Bale's Batman is going, where did that come from?
And I think that's my problem with the movie is every single new plot turn that leads them from one point to the next is that contrived every time.
Yeah.
Like every time you're like, that's a fucking leap. And it's like, I get it if that's the point, but I don't know if it works for me or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love the idea behind it, like you were talking about how that's his background.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's a great idea. But I feel like if they were going to go that route, they could have done it in such. This movie could have felt a lot more clever, rather than just saying, "Hey, we're already have that sort of so dumb it's amazing vibe by the action scenes. We'll just do the whole movie that way, including the dialogue." Because you get that vibe also with the one-liners. The one-liners are obviously intentionally bad, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those one-liners are not clever. But with one-liner, everything post-Bond, cheesy one-liners are more often than not intentionally bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they exist, is to be bad. Like I said, I just don't know if there's another one. It's when they're on the plane with the senator.
Mm-hmm.
The dog hairs.
Mm-hmm.
How many do they think Stephen McHatty's dog is the only dog in this universe? Like, what the?
Well, not just that, like when Clive Owen finds the gun and he's like, oh, these aren't supposed to be out for 6 months. whenever that happens in any other movie or show, they go to like an arms dealer, and Clive Owen just happens to find the answer at the factory.
Like I said,
And Hertz has given up his search enough to go back to the factory and regroup.
Hertz can materialize anyway. There is a portal here, and I also get if it's for time.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get like when he says, track down all the lactating hookers in town, and it immediately cuts to him in Monica Bellucci's room saying, "There was a guy with a baby here." It's like, oh, well, hold on. There were like 5 scenes we missed. It's like, I get it if it was like they looked for lactating hookers, they found Monica Bellucci, they said, hey, did a guy come through here into Monica Bellucci's room?
Mm-hmm.
It still feels like a stretch. But like I said, I guess there's enough pieces there that we don't have to see, that we can cut straight from him saying that to being in Monica Bellucci's room.
And see, there is a point where there's like a logical discovery, like when he finds the pawn shop and he sees the broken glass on the street and they're parked in front of a pawn shop that sells guns. That makes sense. And that one, they reward him for being like a genius, but I thought that one was kind of logical.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's like an unbalance where it's like when you see those moments that are genuinely clever, the rest of it's probably trying to be too. It would have to be, because why would you make one scene intentionally smart and another scene intentionally not?
And if I remember right, isn't the person that runs the pawn shop the person that makes Tommy Callahan's chicken for him? Or gets the chicken made for him? I think it's that same waitress.
One that asked him about the food stamps?
Asked him about the food stamps.
And shoot him up when he wants to buy bullets? Is that who you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the person that runs the pawn shop when he goes in and like she cuts him a deal. She's like, I'll give you half the box now and I'll give you half when you come back with money. Right before he catches Monica Bellucci trying to make money.
I don't think I ever noticed that. Did you confirm that or?
No, I'm about 99% sure though that that's the case.
That's weird. I never noticed.
I can try to confirm it right now for you if you want.
I would say when I watch it again, it'll probably be super obvious.
I'll work on confirming this while you're making your next point.
Because another one of those things where you can tell it's probably trying to be smart, but it's like way much of a stretch is the baby being calmed to sleep by metal music. And it's like they piece together, like literally everything in this movie is people piecing things together in a contrived way. And it's like, that's what I mean. Like, so you add on everybody trying to be a detective in this movie, as well as the whole plot with the maternity factory and the marrow and the senator and all that stuff, the politics of it. Should a movie with this much action called Shoot 'em Up have this much plot?
There's a lot going on for a movie that's just supposed to be like, I was correct.
What's her name?
Oh, damn it. I just closed out of IMDb.
Because I remember. What's that?
I said you're killing me.
I remember me being a bit disappointed about that when I saw it in theaters. Because I still dug it in theaters, and I still watch it occasionally, still. Like, it's not a movie I dislike or anything, and I get what it's going for the most part.
Maria Vakratsis. She was Helen the waitress.
I can't believe I never noticed that.
Yeah, you'll have to go back and check now.
But I remember being a little disappointed in the theater because it was like, what? This isn't really... And that's the thing, too. It's like, maybe... I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe they made the plot dumb enough that it was like, they put a lot of plot in it, but they still didn't want the audience to think that much about it.
Mm-hmm. It would have done better with a simpler plot like Crank. Like, Crank's plot is literally... They're trying to kill Chev Chelios because he let somebody go he wasn't supposed to. That's
Yeah.
nice and simple.
And it's like, and I get there's only so many reasons
Mm-hmm.
that Paul Giamatti and a band of idiots would want to kill a baby.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's a lot going on here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, and that's the thing too, is when it comes time for him to kill the senator, it's like there's so many ways. I mean, like, I guess it's clever to an extent because you spend the whole movie thinking, why don't they just kill the senator?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that little twist where it's in their favor to keep him alive.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, it's like the fact that Smith killing the senator is such a simple thing that solves so many problems.
Mm-hmm.
Sums up how overplotted this movie does not have to be. But somehow it is. I don't know. But that's not to say that the movie doesn't have some moments.
Now I do love, like, for example, Paul Giamatti is a great actor as far as his reactions to things that his character sees. He's a great reactionary actor. I love whenever he finds out, once he runs it over, that the baby is actually some kind of robot with a cassette tape. I love his reaction to that. Because he's thinking the same thing all of us are.
Especially since there's that really twisted moment where he's like fired up when he thinks they ran it over.
Mm-hmm.
Ran him over. I don't want to get Monica Bellucci mad at me.
Yeah.
She did not like Clive Owen calling him it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the irony of him saying that Mr. Smith is twisted for it not being a real thing. Because that's the thing too, is this. I feel like this would be a character. This is the brilliance of the casting. Hertz especially would be a character where it feels like they're trying way too hard to make a villain that's like really psychotic and really twisted. And it's like just basically him wearing a neon sign saying, "Look how evil I am."
Mm-hmm.
It's Paul Giamatti playing this character that makes it feel unique and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like if it were any other actor that didn't have the prestige of Giamatti, it would be cringy.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's Giamatti and because Giamatti can do what Giamatti does, it adds a different layer to it entirely.
Mm.
I said it, where it's like you see actors of prestige in a part like this, it adds a whole other tongue-in-cheek factor to the movie.
Mm-hmm. And Clive Owen is really underrated here in just how straight he plays this character.
Yeah, because we just talked about Giamatti almost winning an Oscar for Cinderella Man. Let us not forget, just the year before, Clive Owen almost won for Closer.
Mm-hmm.
If Freeman wasn't getting his career Oscar, Clive Owen would have won an Oscar for Closer.
Mm-hmm.
And then wasn't there even a Bond reference in this? Where,
I believe so.
Because it was right around this. It was like right before this movie came out. Like, because this came out the year after Casino Royale. Before Casino Royale was a thing, before Daniel Craig as Bond was a thing, it was almost Clive Owen.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't there a scene in this where he grabs like a Walther and says it's a piece of shit?
I think so, yeah.
And you're talking about how straight Clive Owen's able to play it, and that really works with. You would think in a movie like this, it would be out of place for there to be a scene that's sincere.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a nice, genuinely sincere scene in this movie. There's one. You know what scene it is? When he's on the bus after he's just gotten the baby and he sees the mother holding the baby that has like a hat.
Mm-hmm.
So he sacrifices his own sock to put on its head.
Yeah.
It's like that's like an actually nice, sincere moment. And you even see the mom like approve of like, oh, what a good dad he is, even though he doesn't have, the means.
Which is funny too, because you could have easily shown a shot of her being grossed out. But
Yeah,
it's almost funnier that she's so on board with it.
yeah, because the shot of her being disgusted, what you expect,
Yeah.
and it's actually nice. But then again, it's like, where is this movie tonally? I don't know.
Clive Owen's just
Really
really
another moment.
good. Clive Owen's really good at just playing the straight guy in strange situations. Look at him as Dwight in Sin City.
Yeah,
That's like where you said that you felt like that Daniel Craig's forte is comedy, where a lot of people love his Bond. I think you could say the same for Clive Owen as a straight man in a comedy. They even had him do it in The Pink Panther.
yeah. It's like the only good scene in that movie.
Like Clive Owen is great when he's playing the straight guy and there's just crazy shit happening all around him. And he just doesn't respond to it.
This was also, let us not forget, the year before this, the same year Shoulder Ben was his fantastic turn in Inside Man.
Mm-hmm.
He was in a really good place around this time.
Yeah. I mean, could you see the similarities where do you think if you switched Clive Owen and Jason Statham places and Jason Statham was in Shoot 'Em Up and Clive Owen was in Crank, do you think it would make that much of a difference?
I can absolutely positively see Statham here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could see him as Chevron. I'm not sure.
It would be weird to see Clive Owen act so frenetic.
Yeah, because he's so straight-faced.
Yeah.
But like, well, I don't know, because Statham is also straight-faced, but Statham can deliver his lines in a way that's like over the top in a good way and comedic.
Yeah.
Especially when we get down to Spy eventually.
I wonder if Guy Ritchie helped with that.
Oh, that's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Clive Owen's deliveries are as straight as his face.
Mm-hmm.
But Statham can keep a straight face and go in all different kinds of deliveries. I said when he's asked if he wants some pot, it's like two different deliveries at once. and that's not anything against Clive Owen. It's just their different strengths.
Mm-hmm.
We keep talking about the action. How do you feel overall about the execution of the action?
I mean, it's fun. I think a lot of it's completely implausible, but that's part of the fun. Like you're in a movie. Why stick to realism? You're in a movie where you can make anything happen you want.
I think my problem though is that you can make things totally implausible while still using practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is the action scenes are a lot of editing and a lot of CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Like the really obvious green screen for the sky. I feel like the skydiving scene should be insane, and maybe I'm just spoiled now because of Tom Cruise. But
and Crank.
Yeah, Cranks looks really good too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just so damn obvious it's green screen. We even talked about when we did the Bond video.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about my favorite opening scene of any Bond movie is the skydiving scene in Moonraker.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the 70s and looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just such obvious green screen, mostly in close-ups of Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the intensity of the fact that they're skydiving isn't there as much as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such obvious green screen and just the way it's edited, and like even the scene where he's in the car, also like that little chase sequence, also
Which
feels
one?
so. I believe I'm talking about the one where the baby's on the road.
Oh, okay.
And right before Giamatti does the reaction shot.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like so much of that frenetic editing and the CGI that there's not like I wonder if this movie would look the way it does still if we were post John Wick. Because we're already post Bourne, which had Clive Owen in it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same year as Ultimatum, even. But that's the thing is, even though people say that John Wick is post Bourne and carries over from Bourne,
Mm-hmm.
Bourne is still editing in those fight sequences.
It's
John Wick
the
would
Paul
get-
Greengrass effect.
Yeah, literally, they're his movies,
Mm-hmm.
except for Lyman doing the first one and Gilroy doing Legacy. But regardless, because you can tell, but you know what I mean? Like, John Wick John Wick, I feel like we get a much better look at the fights.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what this movie would look like if this movie would look the same post John Wick.
I think John Wick's also an example of kind of what Shoot 'em Up was trying to do, but it does it better.
Yeah, and let's also remember John Wick is also post The Raid.
Yeah.
The Raid is a whole masterclass in its own. The Raid, for me, is at the top of what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I wish I could get really, really wrapped up in the action scenes in this the way I do in something like The Raid or a John Wick or a Bourne movie.
Or Crank.
Yeah, and Crank, like I said, it's also that frenetic editing, but it just suits Crank so well, and it's still. If, like I said, the whole movie of Crank, we feel like we're in Chev's frame of mind by some miracle.
Mm-hmm.
But with Shoot 'em Up, it feels like we're on the outside looking in, and we can kind of barely see in because it's so. Because a lot of the blood is apparently they used like thousands upon thousands of gallons of like blood.
Mm-hmm.
I almost said real blood, but I mean as far as fake blood that's actually present. But when people are getting shot, it's the obvious CGI blood that you'll see in like Matthew Vaughn movies,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't have the same impact.
What do you think of the scene where Smith's driving down the road and he gets mad at the guy that doesn't use his blinker?
Yeah, I know. And that ends up becoming his trait of, you know what I hate, and it's something like mundane that he, treats in a very over the top way.
It's his version of Peter Griffin's, it really grinds my gears.
Yeah. It's a joke I think works better on paper than execution. Like when you say, like it almost feels cliche where you say like, oh, he's a guy that's like a really violent character, so wouldn't it be funny if something mundane like, oh, a guy doesn't use his blinker, he reacts too violently.
Do you think that joke would have been funnier if it was for Chev Chelios?
Yes, because Chev Chelios would have killed him afterwards. Which would have made it so much funnier. I mean, that guy in the car could be dead. But I don't know. It just doesn't now that you mention that, I feel like that joke would be much better suited to Chev Chelios. But it's just so especially since we know that Mr. Smith came from like a potentially somewhat stable life, at least as far as his family goes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he comes from dark places, but he at least had some stability in his family life. God knows what fucked up shit Chev Chelios came from. Amy Smart's the only thing giving him any balance, and Amy Smart is probably just as crazy as he is. We learn.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And I think the difference with Crank 2 is what I was saying they did with Amy Smart's character. Amy Smart could have easily been like Monica Bellucci and Shoot 'em Up.
Yeah. And they do try to do stuff with Bellucci where she gets him like a tender side, but it's like that's what we come to expect. The Amy Smart thing, the fact that the ways in which she goes along with it,
Mm-hmm.
just feel like such a much better idea for that kind of character.
Something else that you failed to mention that they have in common is both of them have a scene where there's an action scene in the middle of fucking.
Yeah. And it's, once again, in Crank, it serves a purpose. In Shoot 'em Up, it's to say, look how crazy we are, look how edgy we are, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't want to sound like I'm like really, really bashing on Shoot 'em Up, because I do get enjoyment out of it, but I just wish it was, I keep wanting to say smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess because of that whole detective angle everybody's going for, where everything is like a clue. I just
Do
wish
you,
that stuff was
is it that
better
you
written.
want it to be smarter, or do you want it to be? Do you want it to just let go and just be completely over the top, ridiculous,
Yeah,
and
just kind of
stop trying to be so smart?
because it's like because obviously by the title tells us what the
Hmm.
director was going. Literally a movie that is just gunfights,
Hmm.
like what we got with Free Fire. Like that's the kind of thing you probably expect. Like when you hear like if you didn't know either movie existed and you were told that a movie called Shoot 'Em Up exists, you would probably what you imagine would probably be closer to Free Fire than what
Hmm.
we get in Shoot 'Em Up. Because Free Fire is obviously very simple. Free Fire is if Reservoir Dogs was an action scene.
Hmm.
Like one long action scene. A half an hour of us meeting crazy characters, and then 1 hour of all those crazy characters killing each other.
See, it's funny that you talk about how for Shoot 'Em Up they wanted to do a John Woo type thing. John Woo's plots weren't that convoluted, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Broken Arrow is the example I use. Broken Arrow is the simplest plot in the world.
Even Face Off's plot, while convoluted, is still ridiculously simple.
Yeah, like the procedures are complicated, but the plot is simple.
Hmm.
So
I think the most complicated John Woo movie I ever saw, as far as plot and contrivances, is probably Mission Impossible 2.
yeah, and people hated Mission Impossible 2 for that. It's
Yeah. Whereas it returned to form with Mission Impossible 3. Mission Impossible 3, disgustingly simple.
so good, so action packed, and
Is it
now,
the best
now
Mission Impossible movie in your eyes? Is it 3?
I fall. I don't. It's hard to classify Rogue Nation and Fallout as two separate entities.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd probably say Fallout probably.
You
The
think
movie,
Fallout's a little better than 3?
yeah, and Fallout's the movie that's forever spoiled me on skydiving scenes. Where it's like if you're a skydiving scene and you're not Fallout, you're inferior.
Now that makes me want to see a shoot 'em up style movie, but instead of Clive Owen, putting Henry Cavill in there.
Yeah, I could see that.
Henry Cavill was still my pick to replace Daniel Craig as Bond. But I'm one of the few people that really liked Henry Cavill's Superman, though, too.
And there's a whole legion of people who love Richie's The Man from Uncle for some reason.
Mm.
So that you can talk to them. I don't want to talk to them, but you can talk to them. So I
No,
think
I'm just out here to promote that I don't think Henry Cavill's Superman is bad. The movies that he's in aren't great, but I like him as Superman.
well, everybody's getting their Snyder cut they wanted, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you like Cavill as Superman?
He's a little bland, but I guess this is where we've ended up. what I was getting ready to say. So, bottom line is, we like Crank more than we like Shoot 'Em Up. Is that are we agreeing on this, or
Yeah, I would say so.
do you take to Shoot 'Em Up more than I do? Do you think?
It's probably about the same. I forgot that Shoot 'Em Up had like a message it was trying to get across at its core.
Yeah, which is
And I'm a political person, but even for me, I was like, okay, that's a little on the nose for me.
yeah, and for a movie like that, and you know
It's
that's the
like,
thing is,
I know what it's like. It's like if they took the scene with the family talking at the birthday party in Knives Out and tried to make that central to the plot of Knives Out.
yeah, because I mean, when you look at it being over the top and bloody and stuff like that, there were plenty of like exploitation era movies that blatantly put politics in their movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like maybe he was going for something like that, like an exploitation vibe. But I don't know. I feel like just like that's another reason why it was probably a good idea to compare it with Crank. It's because you can just say sometimes movies like Crank need to exist, where that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
like those like doing that stuff, like combining something like that with, you know, like a message in there or like a complicated plot or whatever you want to do can work, but I don't think Shoot 'em Up reached it in the way it was trying to. And the fact
Yeah.
that the line is so blurred that we can't tell what's intentional and what isn't also, I think, kind of falls on that,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like an audience that can't distinguish. Sometimes it's on the audience. Sometimes audiences are just dumb and can't distinguish a clear point a writer or a director was going for. But other times, you can put it on the writer director if the line's not clear. So. But it's, once again, that's just an opinion based thing, and somebody could see it totally for that. But I wish I could, but yeah. So I watched Crank 4 probably.
Mm.
So yeah. So is that where you stand?
Yeah.
All right. As usual, we don't really know what our next one is,
Mm-hmm.
but
I have an idea of one that I want to talk about once we're off camera.
that should be interesting.
Mm-hmm. It was one I caught on TV the other day, and I forgot how good it was. And I kind of want to talk about it, and I can't remember if you did or not.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
All right, and then I've got a review video coming for the weekend. Owen really wants me to talk about the live Hamilton thing. I don't know how much I can say, but I'll try.
What do you mean the live Hamilton thing?
They did a live record. They like, you know how like the famous recording of Cats.
Yeah.
Did you watch like music class where they filmed it on the stage?
Oh, the one that's going to be on Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And what's interesting about that, and pretty much one of the main reasons I'm talking about it, is it will be, as far as I know, and I've heard multiple times, it will be Oscar eligible. So that'll be interesting.
Well, I mean, a year like this, and with the way things have happened, probably opens up a lot more eligibility.
Yeah, and James Whitmore got a Best Actor nomination for Get 'Em How Harry, and that's a movie that's a film stage play. So it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think now we're in the territory that doesn't cross over with Crank and Shoot 'Em Up. So
How is it for you? How weird is it for you? Because next month, August is when you start your Oscar videos, right?
we just talked about that. What we figure we'll do is we may not do predictions right away, but we'll still start videos in August and just kind of discuss.
I was gonna ask how much Corona has affected like your ability to predict anything.
Yeah, because the show's been pushed to April.
Yeah.
So there's still going to be like 2. So even if we start, like even if we want to do predictions, we technically wouldn't have to start until 2 months after we normally do. But we'll still do videos.
Which would be, in Norm Macdonald's words, October?
Yeah. But we'll talk about what's going on, and we'll interact with the chat and all that stuff, and just kind of figure out where we're going from there. So yeah. So with all that said, is that about it for this?
I think so.
All right.